But yeah, well, thank you, everyone. I am Paul Larson, Director of Government Affairs. This is welcome to the first, hopefully, of many Boulder Mayoral forums by the Colorado Restaurant Association in Denver. Thank you for EatDenver for partnering up with us on this so that we can have a restaurant-focused Q&A from who will hopefully be the future mayor. I do want to make a quick note that Councilwoman Nicole Spear had to cancel this morning. She woke up and is feeling under the weather, decided not to come and infect us all. So she sends her regrets, and you may have an opportunity to hear from her on some of the issues that I'm going to ask to the folks that are here in person. So I'm going to start off by allowing each one of you guys, we'll try to keep it concise, to just a 1-minute brief introduction, who you are, and really, you know, what is your top priority if elected mayor? I know that there's a whole bunch of things, but, you know, kind of hone in on, give us an idea of what you view as the most important issue facing Boulder in what would be your 10 years mayor. And yeah, we'll just start with another one.
Well, my name is Bob Gates. I'm currently a member of the Boulder City Council. I've been in City Council for 8 years. I'm running for mayor. This is the very first time that we're going to directly elect our mayor. So those of you who live in Boulder will have an opportunity to select the mayor. Previously, the mayor was appointed by City Council. I have a special place in my heart for the hospitality industry. I have served for the last 7 years on the board of directors of the Convention Visitors Bureau, and I know some of you through that. We have a lot of hotels and restaurants on our board. I'm one of the few non-hospitality people. Although, like my wife, I go to restaurants all the time, and I like to eat. I also have a special place in my heart for restaurants that happen to be downtown, which I know some of you are, because I have served for many, many years on various of the downtown organizations. I was in the Business Improvement District Board for, I think, 6 years. I just finished a term as the chairman of the Downtown Boulder Foundation, which is a nonprofit that puts on Bands on the Bricks and all the wonderful events that we do, Fall Fest we just had. And so I'm very sensitive to the issues of hospitality, and particularly hospitality in Boulder, downtown Boulder. You need to Colin's question, the biggest single issue by far is public safety. It affects your businesses. If you have a business here in Boulder, particularly if you have a business in downtown Boulder, we're not doing the right things, obviously, to address public safety. We have lots of people camping in our parks and our creek. We have lots of crime. Some of the crime, I was talking to Peter Waters the other day, he's been a victim of crime over and over again. A guy with a machete, a guy that walked out and didn't pay his dog. It's just unbelievable the stuff that those in the hospitality industry have to deal with here in Boulder, particularly in downtown Boulder. So I'd love to hear your questions after we get done introducing ourselves, to hear what you think are not only some of the problems, which I'm pretty aware of, but also maybe some of the solutions we can take on. Thank you.
Great. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Hi, I'm Aaron Brockett. It's a pleasure to be here with you on this beautiful day and in this beautiful venue. Thanks so much for Velvet Elk for hosting us today. So I have been a member of the Boulder City Council for 8 years and been the mayor for the last 2. I live up in North Boulder with my wife and 2 kids. I've been there for 20 years. And I'm a former small business owner and software developer. So I know what it's like to run a business day by day and, you know, make the books work out on a regular basis. And I will say I have not worked as a server in a restaurant, but the number of restaurants that I've eaten at is truly extraordinary, including I think every single restaurant that was mentioned here today. And I have to give a big congratulations to our first Michelin-starred restaurant in Boulder, the Nebraska. I actually got to attend that event. It was extraordinary, such a celebration. Congratulations to the other winners from that night as well. So I'll say the top priority here, I will say it's about finding better solutions for homelessness, right? We have this rising tide of unsheltered homelessness. So we have people suffering on our streets, and there are people experiencing mental health crises and substance abuse problems, and there are big impacts happening to all the people around them as well. So we need better solutions for our community and better solutions to get people off the streets and into safe places where they can recover and where the impacts aren't being then felt by other folks. So I'm sure we'll talk about all these things in detail, and I look forward to it. Perfect.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Paul Tweedley. I live in 4th Street, and I'm running for mayor. And I've got no political experience whatsoever. Not in Scotland, not here. I've never held any public office. And I'm a software engineer. I've been for 35 years. Developing software for design, simulation and manufacture, mainly for the aerospace engineer. So that's aerospace engineering industry. So I think that I don't know how I can bring that to apply it here, but anyway, here I am. What's the number one issue? I agree with these guys. It's drugs, it's crime, it's homeless. It's like, this is a really pretty town. It's got that reputation. You know, we do need to clean it up. Thank you.
Perfect. Well, thank you for that. So I'm gonna launch into, we have, the first question down. We have 5 other pre-prepared questions, and then we'll have time for Q&A at the end. And these were things that we discussed as a board, as issues of topic served at the restaurant. So the first one, as you're likely aware, the Boulder County Commission recently announced their intention to raise the minimum wage in the county of Boulder to $15.70 an hour, and then have it on an accelerated timetable going forward after that. And then obviously the city decided to delay the implementation of its own minimum wage increase to the originally agreed upon date of January 1st, 2025, which the industry thanks you for sticking to that original timeline. Obviously, the minimum wage is a paramount concern to the hospitality industry. And if you're elected, how would you plan to handle the minimum wage issue in your first term, and how that would look in Boulder? And yeah, we'll just keep going. I think, yeah, we'll rotate, and so we'll start with Mayor Bucket.
Okay. Yeah, a great question. I think it's important, right? So we're doing a stakeholder work right now in coalition with all the city, well, not, but many of the cities in Boulder County, right? So the county is moving ahead on their own, but we are now working with the city on collaborating with the chamber, with the restaurant industry, and many other groups, including other municipalities, about how we would move forward with a minimum wage increase potentially next year. So that increase includes plenty of outreach, it includes public hearings, it includes stakeholder input, and look forward to that conversation to determine. And it's something that should be done keeping all these considerations in mind, right? Because we have lower income workers who are really struggling to afford our communities, but we also have small businesses that struggle to pay their bills. So you got to balance these things together. I'm looking forward to the conversation. I'm hopeful that we can do something that's in coordination with the region, because when you have disparities across borders, I think it creates additional problems for businesses. So I'm glad that we're working with, well, not so much the county anymore, but with the other cities to come up with a regional approach. Thanks for that.
I think it's always dangerous when politicians mess with the free market. Because typically they make it worse, they steal from Peter to get the ball, and that doesn't make things better. It usually makes things inefficient. So I think the minimum wage is another one of these issues, and we'll have to be careful here. Let me give you an example. You ever been to Safeways there? They hire stuff like the twins, the twins, and there's a new guy there, and they collect carts and they do, they pack groceries. Do a useful job. See if we can only afford to pay them $10 an hour, and then we raise the minimum wage. All right, well, there's one of two things that can happen here. That job disappears. We can't afford to pay $20 an hour to collect carts. So what happens? The guy loses his job, and then the customers suffer as well because no one's picking up the carts. Now it's your job to pick up the carts. The other option is Safeways just decides, all right, we'll just up our prices here so we can pay $20 an hour for card services. Well, the customer suffers again, higher prices. So we have to be careful.
My first W-2 job was in 1976. I lied about my age. Wasn't quite old enough. And I was a dishwasher. I became a dishwasher in the Fireside Restaurant in Westminster, Colorado. And the minimum wage then was $2.65 an hour. That's exactly what I made. I went on to have several other jobs in the hospitality industry. And ultimately, I went to law school, became a lawyer, and then I represented restaurants that were getting started and dealing with their legal issues. And so I went from $2.65 to a little bit more than that per hour as a lawyer. But I've always had my foot in the door in hospitality, and particularly in the restaurant industry. This minimum wage thing is a really concerning issue to me. Here's why. Back in May this year, The cities in Boulder County, Louisville, Lafayette, and Boulder, and so forth, got together and said, hey, listen, if we're gonna make a change to minimum wage, which is what the state has recently allowed, we should do this together, because it's really chunky. Louisville has one minimum wage, and Lafayette has another, and Boulder has another, and some of you have restaurants in all those cities, and it gets really, really weird. So let's do this together, and we all agreed to do it together. We all agreed that we would need to have a long phase in, so that restaurants and small businesses and nonprofits would have plenty of time to prepare for this. And so we said, as a city council, and all the other cities said, January 1, 2025, that was a year and a half away at that point. Fine, great. Fast forward to a few weeks ago, and the county was part of that, by the way. The county, Boulder County was part of that. Fast forward a few weeks ago, the 3 county commissioners said, you know what? I know we said January 1, 2025, but we changed our minds. We're gonna make it January 1, 2024, like 4 months from now. Like, Christ, that's crazy. Like, how could you do that to the businesses? And they tried to persuade all the cities, Louisville, Lafayette, and Boulder, and so on and so forth, to accelerate the same way. And we said no. Now, elections have consequences, and who you have as your elected officials often affects your business and your lives. And when that came back to Boulder City Council a few weeks ago, on a 5-4 vote, it was that close, 5-4, 5 of us said, nope, we promised the businesses in Boulder that we would not do this until January 1, 2025, and we would stick with it. 4 people said, no, let's join the county and let's accelerate it. So think carefully about who you vote for the coming election, both for mayor, but also for city council, because those people will have a direct impact on your business. We dodged a bullet on this one, but who knows what issues will come up next year that could affect your business. So think carefully about who you elect to city council.
Great. Appreciate that. And then the next one will go to Mr. Tweedley. So restaurants interact with several city agencies for various permits, approvals related to renovation, construction, liquor licensing. Turnaround times for many of these permits has been steadily growing, with some permits taking almost a year in some cases. This has impeded restaurants' ability to grow and open in the city, and even caused some to leave the city. How would you address this issue if elected mayor?
The red tape's pretty bad, isn't it? It's like, government. It's like, you know, like the federal government is threatening to shut down. One of the problems I've got is I can't cash my checks to put them into my bank account because I need to have an EID number, whatever that is, the bank manager tells me. All right, to get an EID number, you've got to go on the IRS website. You go in there, and they've got this automated system that it says access denied, and it's been like that for a week. So I can't cash my checks on my campaign. And it's just like, you know, I hope the federal government shuts down and never opens again. Yeah, municipal government, we need municipal government. Yeah, but there are so many red tapes and hurdles and permits you've got to get through. And you know, they keep adding more and they add more, and we need this. I think we need a way to sort of get rid of the ones that no longer make sense. For example, like walking your dogs. You know, I don't have a dog, I used to, but in North Boulder Park there, you know, there are these notices saying dogs must be in a leash. You know, everybody's, and it's great to watch these dogs in the frisbees, and they jump up and catch it at the highest spot. It's beautiful to see, but we still get a silly city ordinance which nobody pays attention to. So we need a way to get rid of these laws that are just hampering business, hampering citizens, do what they want to do.
You know, I talked before, and we'll talk some more, I think, in a bit about the biggest external factor that I think we're dealing with is public safety. Probably the biggest internal factor within the city government is this third point about how long it takes to get permits, adjustments. How long did it take you to get a patio permit for the jungle? A long time, right?
It took a second.
Yeah, it took more than a second.
More than 2 seconds.
More than 2 seconds. Yeah, it's a big problem in the city government, and there's really 2 problems. One, I think we're about fixed on, and one they're still working on. One problem is we just had a whole, as Paul said, layers and layers and layers and layers of rules and regulations, and they just build up over time. Just last week, actually, the city council took on a bunch of those rules and regulations and stripped a whole bunch away. We still have more work to do on that, but we're trying to get through those layers of bureaucracy. You know, those of us who serve on city council, we're the legislative branch of government. We step on the city council and we inherit all the laws that have been passed by people, you know, in good faith in prior years, and then suddenly you realize you have so many layers of laws that you can't even do anything. And so every once in a while we have to dial those things back. The second problem is a little tougher one. just like those of you in the hospitality industry who have a desperate time hiring employees, city government has a desperate time hiring employees. There's just a significant labor shortage. And unfortunately, the planning department, which handles our permits, has been understaffed so far. Now they're fixing that. We got a new planning director, and hiring people. We're coming out of that problem. And I would say give it another 3 to 6 months, and I think we're going to be in better shape. And we'll continue to strip away some of those unnecessary laws that block you from doing what you need to do.
Yeah, Bob said it well. So we need to do so much better in this area. I don't know, did anybody read the Boulder Reporting Lab story today about Creature Comforts, the cafe down on East Pearl? It was really startling, the facts and figures there. It took her 409 days from her first application to get an approval to open that cafe. And the amount of time and money and desperation point that she got to, it's just unacceptable. So we have to do so much better in this area. We are hiring up, so there is progress being made. The budget that's being brought to us this month includes additional staff in the planning department in this area. So we're going to continue to hire up there. We're making slow progress on this. I talked to Brad Mueller, our planning department director, on a monthly basis. Brad, how are our response times doing? Well, this one is almost where it needs to be. This one's still further away. Okay, great. I'm so glad you're working on it. But then there's also the regulations, and we have too many of them, frankly, here in Boulder. There's been a long history in this town of making things as hard to implement as possible from a planning and permitting perspective. And we're gradually making progress on that. It's time to turn that around. And when people have a great idea, when a small business has a great idea, that we help them with that instead of hinder that. I'll just mention one thing that I'm excited and hopeful about. At our midterm retreat back in February, all the council members were there with all the department directors. And I said to Brad, our planning director, I said, Brad, I'm sure sometimes you encounter bottlenecks, right? Where you see parts of the code that prevent you from doing your job efficiently. He's like, yeah, absolutely. I was like, well, I say, when you find those, bring those back to council and we can fix them. And I asked my colleagues, do you agree with that approach? And everybody said, yes, let's do that. And they've already brought a couple of packages of improvements and changes. And I talked to Brad, they're coming back with another set in January. So look for additional improvements in this area. We are going to do better than we need to. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Our next question will go to Councilman Yates. So lack of affordable housing in the city is frequently cited as a barrier to attracting desperately needed hospitality workers. What would your approach be to addressing this? You're like mayor.
Yeah, so often our hospitality workers make a little bit more than what the cutoff is for low income housing, right? Some of them do, and we do a really, really good job with low income housing. We've created 3,000 units of low income housing over the last 20 years, and we're going to continue to do that. We've got a very robust program for that. Who really gets kind of screwed in the middle is the middle, right? The people that are making the middle income, the people that are maybe serving tables or your kitchen staff and so on. So people making maybe they're making $50,000, $80,000, $100,000 a year, kind of the middle income. They're having a desperate time because they really get squeezed out here in Boulder. One of the programs that I put together over the last couple of years and was just launched in August is a middle income down payment assistance program. A lot of times people that are middle income, maybe they mortgage qualify for a nice little condo or townhouse, but they can't save up that 20% down payment, right? And they're constantly chasing it because the prices keep going up, right? They can never get to that 20%, no matter how much they save. And so the program I put together with former Mayor Sam Weaver, voters approved it a few years ago and was launched just last month, is a middle income down payment assistance program. Here's how it works. If you are in the middle income, up to 120% of the area median income, you qualify. You find yourself a house, you make sure you can secure a mortgage for that. And then what the city will do is we will help you with that down payment. Up to 30% of the value of the property. Get this, the loan is interest-free, no charge. Interest-free loan for up to 15 years, no debt service, no interest. You got 15 years. And most people, when they buy their first home, they flip them in about 5, 7, 10 years. And so 15 years shouldn't be a problem for people. And if it is a problem, we get to 15 years and of course, by that time they built a ton of equity in the house, both with the mortgage payment pay down and also the appreciation. So they should be in pretty good shape. But if they're having a problem, we have also a hardship exception to this. So 15 years interest-free loan for those of you who have employees in that kind of that sweet spot in the middle to help them get into housing here in Boulder so that you can recruit those folks to work for your establishments. Thank you.
Yeah, so this is an all of the above kind of approach. Our housing prices are, of course, through the roof, and we have to be doing everything that we can to make progress on this. So one thing that we've been working on recently that I've been excited about is doing some rezonings in some of our older business parks and strip malls to allow those to redevelop into vibrant mixed-use neighborhoods with good quantities of housing at different sizes and different price points, with a big chunk of those being 25% on average, actually about 30% on average, being permanently affordable. Mostly to low and moderate income, but some to middle income folks as well. So those are moving forward in the East Boulder area. Actually, until just recently, you couldn't open a cafe in any of those buildings in East Boulder. We actually just changed those regulations about a year ago, so that's now doable. This is one of the examples of us, cutting through the red tape and allowing things that weren't allowed otherwise. So look for new opportunities in that area. And then one that's a bit of a longer term play is in the Area 3 Planning Reserve. This is just north of town, like north of J, east of 36 in that part of town. So that currently is not eligible for annexation unless it's changed through what we call a major update to our comprehensive plan. Pardon me while I geek out on the planning stuff here for a minute. But our next major update is coming in 2025. And at that time, I think we should consider making that area annexable. It's currently the land prices are low and much of it is owned by the city already. So we have a huge, really one in a generation opportunity to add additional housing. I think we could make a lot of middle income affordable housing since we already own the land. So that's a huge opportunity. It'll take a few years to go through, but I'm looking forward to getting started on it in a couple of years here now.
Yeah, I agree. There's 600 acres up there, and part of the comprehensive plan can accelerate it. I don't know. Again, you don't want to run this with the market. I mean, like, for example, people say affordable housing, builders have to make so many percent, like, whatever it is, units affordable. That's all very well, but there's days to stop them selling it at market rate, all the rest of it. But what happens? People rent it out. You're not supposed to do that, but they're charging market rate to rent it out. One thing I'd like to add is mobile home parks are fantastic. Do you know what the best one in Boulder is? It's in the Napleton Mobile Home Park. It's just a beautiful place. And the bank's, Goose Creek bike path goes through it. And there they've got there's two rates. There's the market rate ones, and then anyone can buy it as long as you qualify. You have to pass, a test. It's a background check to get in there, regardless. But there's a market rates and then the fixed rates. And it's up to the guys to decide who they want to sell it to. It's a great system. My girlfriend lives there, and I thoroughly recommend you go and check that place out.
And then the next question will go to Mayor Brockett. And we've all already touched on this particular one, but crime and homelessness are creating a unique set of issues for retail businesses, including staff safety concerns, discouraging customers from visiting certain businesses. How would you plan on addressing this near term?
You can go longer than 1 minute.
You can't. One sentence only.
Yeah, that's great. At all these forums, we've had 14 candidates. At most of them, you get 1 minute each for 3 questions. We get to talk a lot. These are great questions too. Yeah, so I'll just start by talking about crime, right? Like, crime has risen coming out of the COVID area. It's at unacceptable levels, and it's impacting our businesses, particularly downtown, at unacceptable levels, right? So this is something where we need to make progress on. So let me talk about some things that are in process to make progress on this issue right now. So I am happy to say that our police department is in the process of hiring up, and they're expecting and hoping to be at full staff later this year for the first time in 10 years. And we're getting some good new officers, folks. Let me tell you, I was at the last police graduation. There are 18 people, wide variety of ages and backgrounds, ethnicities. So we've got some really good folks who are coming in to help deal with some of these crime issues. In the meantime, we have other solutions that don't involve police officers. So I know that you all know the Downtown Ambassadors. That's been a great program. And that's being expanded. It just moved up to the Hill as well, which also deals with these issues a lot. We added urban park rangers who are in our parks now to help deal with some of these issues. And one program that I'm really looking forward to that I've championed in my time on council is a program called CARE. It's based on the STAR program in Denver. And it sends out an EMT and a social worker to low-level emergency calls. So no officer necessary. And and the STAR program in Denver has shown that when this program comes online, it's improving outcomes in the community, both for the people affected and the local businesses and residents. Improves outcomes, and then it reduces the load on the police department, and it's actually more affordable than other solutions as well. So this is coming online in a couple of months, and what this means is that we'll get more help for some of these behavioral health and substance abuse issues that we see the impacts of on a daily basis. And it means that the police have more time to focus on serious crime, right? Because you think about the bike thefts that we have. Part of the reason for those is upstream bike theft rings. They're paying big money for these bikes, and so they create a demand for the bikes to be stolen. And when the police have the investigative time to crack down on those bike rings, it closes the pipeline, right? And so you make progress on the stealing side, but also on the upstream side. And then, okay, homelessness I could talk for hours on, but we need better ways of getting people off the streets, right? So currently we have the shelter, which is great, but there's no place for folks to go during the day. And so where are they? They end up by the creek or in downtown. So we're working on opening a day services center that's coming online. Well, we're having real estate problems, hopefully very soon. We hope to make an announcement soon about a location, but that's going to give folks a place to go during the day and get connected to the services to get them housed. And so we also need additional housing for folks experiencing homelessness. And so new projects are coming online right now. There's a 40-unit permanent supportive housing project coming online in just the next few months. And so that's going to get a good chunk of folks off the streets. That's maybe a fifth or even more of the current homeless population in town. So, and one other thing that I'm very excited about is part of the problems that we experience is from untreated substance abuse issues. The methamphetamine out there makes people crazy and they do terrible things sometimes. So we've got to get people off of that. So we just are opening our first group home recovery for methamphetamine addicts in town, and it's opening in a month or two. It has 11 beds. And so every 6 to 9 months, that's going to be 11 people who are getting clean and then moving on to a job and to housing, right? So we need more of those solutions. And I'll just say that in the meantime, we need to make it clear that there are unacceptable behaviors. You cannot assault someone and then just be let off on the streets that same day. There was a stabbing not long ago, and the judge let the guy go on a personal recognizance bond. And that is inappropriate, right? And I've talked to our district attorney, Michael Doherty, about this, and he agrees, like, when there are serious crimes, when there are multiple offenses that are impacting people and affecting people, there do need to be consequences for that. So it's a complicated system between the city, the county, the jail, et cetera. But we need to make clear that there are consequences for real crimes. So it's a little long, but
That's all good.
that's what I got.
Yeah, the homeless transient problem, it's not just Boulder, it's a national problem. But some cities are doing better than others, and some cities are doing worse. Take Denver, for example. Denver is the #4 destination for transients, homeless transients. Comes behind New York City, which is also doing a terrible job. LA, terrible job. San Francisco, terrible job. I was reading in the paper today that so they cleaned up 80 people, 80 homeless people. And what did they do with them? They put them in local hotels. It's like, who's picking up that hotel bill? All right, it's taxpayers, Denver taxpayers, all right. In a way, this could be good for Boulder because, the transients will be calling up the Denver transients. They'll be calling up the Boulder transients saying, guys, we're getting 3 room service over here. 3 room service. And maybe we'll see an exodus over there to Denver. That's the wrong way to tackle the problem. The right way, as you're saying, people have to respect their laws. Visitors have to respect their laws. If it's a misdemeanor, right, you're going to be ticketed and fined. You don't pay your fine, you go to jail. The people say, well, we don't have that much room there in the jail. All right, but I think a lot of it is just the tone. We set the expectations. It's just like, if you come here, you better behave yourself. Otherwise,
I think about this problem, and I think about 2 C's: compassion and community values. And those are not mutually exclusive. We can be compassionate towards those people who are disadvantaged, who have mental health problems, who have substance abuse problems. We can get them the help they need if they're willing to accept that help. But we also have to maintain our community values. Crimes need to have consequences. We can't have people committing crimes, whether it's theft or assault or other worse crimes, and then simply not going to jail. I mean, we were all raised to behave and follow the rules, and some people are not following the rules. They're not respecting our community values. They're camping down at our park, our creek. There's places, the Arboretum. I'm a big guy. I won't even go up there. It's scary up there. That's not acceptable. We actually have some people on our city council right now who are opposed to the camping ban. They think it's fine for people to sleep outside. I think that's not fine for people to sleep outside. First of all, they're taking up our community space. It's tragedy of the commons, right? Somebody's taking the space, the community space for their own use, including others. And secondly, it's not really very good for them, right? We have people who have died out here, who froze to death. And so we need to get those people in off the streets. Our shelter, our night shelter, is running at 80% capacity. Why? Because there's a bunch of people who simply won't go up there. On average this year, there's been 33 empty beds in a 160 bed facility. We don't have a day shelter. We're working on that, and we're trying to get a day shelter open so that people have a place to go when the night shelter is closed. We need to have more permanent supportive housing. As Aaron mentioned, there's a 40-unit space opening soon. Permanent supportive housing is a place not only we give somebody an apartment key, we also assign them a caseworker who's helping them with mental health or substance abuse problems, so that not only are they have a safe, warm place to sleep, but also they're getting themselves out of the problems that got them out onto the street in the first place. As Paul said, we have a huge transience problem. Denver is one of the top cities, and probably in a bad way, cities in the country for homelessness. Unfortunately, Denver is a very short and often free bus ride away. And so guess where most of our homeless folks come from? Denver, right? Half of the people who seek services in Boulder for homelessness, related homelessness, have been in Boulder for less than 1 month. Let's think about that. Half those people you see out there have been here for only a few weeks or a few days. Our human services director estimates that on average, 4 new homeless people show up in Boulder every day. 4 new people a day. That's a lot. And some of them stay here for a few weeks and then move on. They go on to the next city and the next city. And so we need to enforce our laws. We need to get our police staffing up. We just passed a new police master plan that not only, as Aaron mentioned, our police is finally getting up to the budget of staffing, that will take it to the next level so we can address crime when it happens, and also more important, prevent crime before it happens. So I've actually put this all together in an 8-point package. If you'd like to read it, because as Aaron said, it would take a really, really long time to talk about the solutions level of implementing them, but I did bundle them together in 8 points. And please go to my campaign website, which is pretty easy, BobYatesBoulder.com, BobYatesBoulder.com. You'll see the 8 points there. Send me a note if you think there's a 9th point or 10th that I've missed, or that some of them will work. Please do give me feedback. We're making this up as we go along here. We're doing the best we can. We're not gonna let money stand in the way of these solutions, but we do need to be working together to get those folks off the street and the help they want, so that we can reduce crime here in our community. Thanks.
Do you mind just sure, because I did address it. I do support enforcement of the camping ban. I'm not one of the council members who thinks it's bad. While we're looking for places to go.
Great. And then one more question in the pre-done question component, and this will go to Mr. Feedley. Which current or former Colorado elected official do you admire, or would you seek advice from if you were elected? It can be multiple, doesn't have to be a single person.
You're not just one, but who's the worst? Who's gonna say this? These guys are fantastic. I mean, who would you say is the one? Surely Jared Polis. Good to be up there. And he's a holder, Canadian as well. But what can I say is positive about politician? Oh, somebody help me. Throw me a board, guys. No.
All right.
Over to you, Bob.
All right. Oh, you could have said me.
Well, obviously, President Trump is.
I know what Aaron's going to say, so I'm not going to steal that from him since he's going last, but I do actually agree with the person that Aaron's about to mention. So I'll mention somebody different, who I also admire, and that's Josie Keith. Josie is a local person, served county, and not only did she serve as elected official admirably, but she also then served admirably as the head of the community foundation. She's been a mentor to me through the years. She's a kind-hearted person. She's a compassionate person, but she's also got a keen business sense. And when I look to somebody for advice, I often go to Josie and say, Josie, what would Josie do? How would Josie handle this particular situation? Those of you, Josie know what I mean. She's just a fantastic person and we're blessed to have her right here.
It's funny actually, because just we were at a forum this morning and we got asked a question, who's someone that you admire? And actually picked a politician. So I'm going to talk about them again today. And that is our Congressman Joe Goose, who's just an extraordinary servant of the people. Every time I hear him speak, I'm inspired. I take notes. I'm like, wow, how does he do that? The way that he has relates to people personally, his deep knowledge of the issues, and how incredibly hard that he works. He's really, I think, the best of us. I'm just in awe of his work. And I do see him around town on a pretty regular basis. I always ask him for advice on one issue or another. And when I'm thinking about a difficult problem myself, I often generally think, what would Joe do? Just like you were saying about Josie, right? What would Joe do? And try to follow his imagined example. He's just an extraordinary servant. We're incredibly lucky to have him in Washington.
Great. So that's the end of the predetermined questions. I'll open it up to the crowd. If you would just stand up, identify yourself, and then speak your question, and try to speak as loudly as possible into that little owl over there. Any questions from the crowd?
Hello, my name is Laura, and I'm with Boulder's Fish Taco. We have 7 locations in the Denver area. And we want to grow. We're looking for real estate. And the first question everyone asks is, oh, where are you gonna go? More in Denver, more in Fort Collins? And my answer is, there's not a chance in hell I'm gonna open another restaurant in Colorado. Certainly not in Denver, the city of Denver, certainly not in the city of Boulder. And I'm looking totally out of state because, and let me clarify, I advocating Boulder, right? Very, kind of left on the social policies, but from a business perspective, I sell tacos and I can't make a business work any longer in the state. The only reason we're still here, Waffles is still in business in Colorado, is because we have government money from the pandemic, and when that runs out, it's going to be a problem. So when I tell you, I literally cannot make a business work in this state anymore, what is your response?
Yes. Thank you.
First of all, I love all your fish tacos. Please do open another one. I like to go to the one that you've got over here, but if you can.
We still every day.
Yeah, every day, I like to make a lot. If we put one in my neighborhood, that'd be really convenient for me. I live up in North Boulder. First, let me ask you a question so I can answer your question. What is the biggest obstacle to you opening another Waffles here in Boulder?
Here in Boulder, it is, it's rent.
Right.
Available real estate space. It's
Right.
surprisingly not labor.
Mhm.
It's cost of food. That's not
Right.
specific to Boulder, that's everywhere, but, in Boulder specifically, and perhaps it's the location of our restaurant, which is 28 and Pearl, but it's constantly vandalized.
Yeah.
I just spent $6,000 to replace some windows that had rocks thrown through them. Which was just a little bit over my deductible, so it didn't make sense to get insurance for it.
Right.
I can't even put up string lights on my patio at the restaurant because the city's gonna freak out.
Yeah.
But my building looks like it was built in the 80s, because it's a PUD and no changes can happen to it. Minimum wage, that's another component too. It's certainly not as bad as Denver, but
Right.
my staff makes $6 to $8 of tips on top of the minimum wage.
Right.
And we don't pay tip minimum wage, we don't take a tip credit, and that's gonna change because it hurts us.
Right. We talked about some of the issues, but 2 of them that we haven't talked about, and some of them I can't fix the cost of food, sorry. But a couple things we can fix, I think should fix, and that is your commercial affordability and the lighting issue. So the lighting issue, we kind of touched on a little bit, which is kind of this BS regulatory stuff that we have in place. I'd love to sit down with you and understand what regulatory obstacles are in place, because it's really rewarding to me as a former businessman myself and a lawyer for businesses to understand the problems, because oftentimes, again, we're part-time people. We come on city council for a couple of years and we move on, do whatever we do next. And we inherit these laws, and sometimes we're not even aware that laws have existed for years and years and years that prevent businesses from doing what they want to do. So I'd love to learn what obstacles we have, because because we're the legislative branch of government, we can change the laws. So we just need to understand what laws need to be changed, and if there's no good reason for a law, then let's just fix it. The second thing I want to talk about is commercial affordability. This is something, we talked a little bit about housing affordability. We just launched a work in partnership with the University of Colorado to look at ways that we can create affordable commercial space, right? It may be a subsidy from the city, it may be other things that we can do with landlords to reduce the cost of rent. One thing I'm very proud about is that here in the city of Boulder, and of course, property tax is a big part of your triple net, right? We have not raised the mill levy here in Boulder since 2010. Now, Boulder only gets about $1 out of 8 on property taxes, and I realize that when values go up, all the government entities get more money. The school district and the county get most of that, but we have held the line on the rates for property taxes here in the city of Boulder. So that's one thing we've done towards affordability, but we're looking to do more than that. In partnership with you, we should have the report in the next few months, I think, on ways that we can support, subsidize, bring down rents, especially for small businesses, like I consider Waterloo a smallish business, at least here locally, seven places. And so stay tuned for that and figuring out how we can, because I'd love to have you open another Waterloo or two here in Boulder. And so please don't decide against Boulder until we can come up with some solutions for you.
But I welcome the opportunity to sit down and share some of our very specific.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, and Bob made great points. So, and I'm very sorry to hear that from you, because I really need my bowl with the rice, the black beans, the whitefish. Like that's one of my absolute go-to lunches. So if you closed, I would mourn that very much. So yeah, so that some of those problems are tough to solve. But yeah, going back to the removing of red tape, right? I would love to sit down with you as well and learn, what are the obstacles from allowing you to make changes in your business that would make it more attractive to your customers, right? And help you up that business level. Because we shouldn't be standing in the way as a city, we should be helping folks, right? Who are trying to improve their businesses. And then also on the property tax front, right? I know that I own a little bit of commercial property, a small commercial condo. And so I see the impact of property taxes in my own life and my own finances. So one thing I'd like to have recommend you all look at this year is Proposition HH. Have people heard about this yet? Yeah, we got some folks who are hearing about it because this is something the state legislature has put on the ballot for this fall, and it's to blunt the rising increase in property taxes. And so it would reduce assessment rates for residential and for small businesses for the next, it's very complicated actually, but for the next 10 years or so. So I would highly recommend looking into that and supporting it and encouraging other folks to support it, because for both residential and commercial property owners, and of course, business owners who pay the triple net, this will mitigate that cost. So I think that's one step forward as well. Thanks.
Proposition HH, politicians trying to persuade you, they're taking your property tax. And they say, oh, give some of your tax back. But that's this, which means we're going to keep your TBR tax. TBR is just a great thing. But, these greedy politicians, they want to handle it. And they say it's just another racket. Politicians should all be arrested. I mean, call it police, yeah. Yeah, it's called. Just kidding. I've got a question. All right, what about the rents are too? But what about a taco truck? How come I don't see what I want? Taco trucks can round.
That is, it's a can of worms. It's something certainly that we've thought about. But it's, where do you park it? How do you staff it? Where do you put it? There's so many rules in this town about trucks, that there's only a few places you can go. It's kind of tragic, but I don't think it's the right one for us.
I mean, Boulder should be helping people thrive. Businesses thrive. You're not doing a very good job. Call the police.
Our parking lot's so small, even my head, I could park in that parking lot, I couldn't get it around the corner. So.
I guess I don't really have a question so much as an ask, or something to keep in mind, and we've been asking this for a long time. I think we're a big, important part of this community, and I feel like oftentimes we're in reaction mode as far as, oh wait, what happened? All of a sudden minimum wage is going up again, and it's gonna happen in 4 months. How are we gonna deal with this? This wasn't the deal we heard, or the sugar tax, I know that was a valid initiative, but there's a lot of things that I think get proposed, passed, or almost passed that nobody's reached out to us. Not one person on city council has called one person from the restaurant association to say, hey, this came up in one of our meetings, we're discussing this, you guys seem like you might be affected by it. We want you in at the beginning. So you can give us your input, your insight, how this might affect you in ways that I, as a city council person, can't imagine because I don't work in the restaurant industry every day. Maybe there's unintended consequences that we haven't thought of yet. So I think as an association and as a community of restaurant owners, we would love just the opportunity. I mean, a lot of the things we're not against, but hey, did you think about how the sugar tax might affect boxes of soda compared, like my tax on that costs more than the box of soda costs. I would just love it. I know we as a community would love it if we were reached out to a little bit more and a little bit earlier to say, hey, just, can you guys get together? We're thinking about this. Can you guys write us up some bullet points of some things we might not be thinking of? Or can you come in and meet with us and give us your insights as we talk this through? That would be my big ask, because we're not always against what you're talking about. But I think there's usually some unintended consequences to those. So if one of you becomes mayor or, continue on in city council, I think to reach out to us would make us feel like we are included and thought about these decisions before they happen.
Well, maybe we can agree, those of us up here, to make that commitment. That's a very important commitment to make. Yeah, so
You govern the first people are really, really good, and we do talk to them a lot. In fact, oftentimes they know something's going on before we even know what's going on, like that sugar tax, that was, as you said, the ballot measure that came to, we didn't have a choice in the matter, and the people voted for it. But we did work with CRA and with other organizations and with restaurateurs directly, trying to tweak that law, so at least it was less impactful for some really stupid unintended.
I don't know how these things organically start, like, I don't know how that happens.
Yeah, that was
Who starts it, when it started, when we could get involved.
Yeah, there's two ways that things can get on the ballot. One is city council can put something on the ballot. We did not do that one. And other is residents can get their own sign petition, then they automatically ballot. Our hands are kind of tied, but we did raise this week on that one. Same with minimum wage. We've been working with hospitality industry. The Chamber of Commerce has been great. Convention Business Bureau has been great. Downtown Boulder Partnerships has been great. CRA has been great. We've been in constant conversations with you guys over the last several months about the minimum wage, trying to keep that in 2025, so you have plenty of time to plan. So there is a lot of interaction, but we can always do more. And I think if we're one of us for certain, I'm sure we'd all be happy to sit down with your team on a real regular basis to hear about some of the issues you're dealing with.
Absolutely. I'll just mention I've been at a couple of your board meetings over the years, and I've always learned a lot from that. And so we can continue that two-way street, right?
Yeah, we're trying to improve that as well, and that's part of why this meeting is happening the way it is. Great. So we appreciate it.
Maybe two more questions, then?
I guess I think Councilman Yates, you said that your original W-2 wage $2.66 now. What year was that? 1970?
It was 1976. Yeah.
So my first W-2 wage in the city of Boulder was in 1991, and it was $3.15 an hour. And what would be my W-2 minimum wage today? And whatever it is, right? How does the three of you approach the tip credit issue, and do you believe in it? And if so, to what extent?
I don't think that we have flexibility on this either. You want to go first?
I'm just asking for your opinion.
Yeah. So up until last year, we couldn't even do anything with minimum wage, right? The minimum wage, the state prohibited minimum wage. When they changed that law about a year ago, it was pretty prescriptive. They didn't just say, okay, cities can do whatever you want. There were limitations that it had to be effective on a January 1. It could only be 15% per year increase. It all the stuff around tips, how that is all hardwired into the state law. And so, I'd like to give restaurants a little bit more flexibility. The state opened the door a little bit, but only just to crack. And so we don't have a ton of flexibility around what the state's allowed to do. And that may be part of the legislation.
And I would just add, that's all true, and I would just add to that, that this is something where I wouldn't say I have the answer. Right, so that if we did get that latitude, I would want to sit down with the restaurateurs and if different restaurants are taking different approaches to tips these days, it's an evolving area. So I would want to sit down and talk to everybody about how they're applying it and what would work best for the restaurants and learn from that about what next steps to take.
What is the tips issue? Can you summarize
I was
it?
gonna say that, it's actually an excellent point. So, in the state of Colorado, you're allowed, everyone has to make a minimum wage. And the minimum wage changes every year. Right now, it's 13.60 something. But you're allowed to claim a credit if your employees paid a tip, you're allowed to take a credit. In Colorado, it's $3.02 credit toward the minimum wage, where you can demonstrate that your employees make at least the minimum wage and you factor in what you pay them as well as their tips. You're allowed to claim a credit against that. So it is currently set in the state constitution. Talking about the citizen initiative process, we have started to hear rumblings. There's a group called One Fair Wage that is particularly opposed to the tip credit. Would like to see that go away. And they'll put out some, from our perspective, very misleading information claiming it's sub minimum wage. But it's obviously an issue that's very important to us. It actually allows us to be more equitable in our pay in the industry, because oftentimes in the restaurant, the highest paid people are the, what we call front of the house staff, people who are making tips, your bartenders, waiters, hosts, hostesses. And then your lowest paid people will be the people in the back, line cooks, dishwashers, those sorts of people. When you increase the front of the house minimum wage, basically you're taking $1 that you would have to be able to pay the back of the house person who's maybe making $18 an hour, giving it to a waiter or waitress who, in many cases, is taking home $30, $40 an hour, depending on the establishment, giving them $1 or $2 increase per hour. So it creates some really inequitable situations. But that's, I think, what we're asking is, your thoughts on, would you defend? Hopefully, we won't have an option to defend a tip credit, but if it does become a salient political issue, would it be something that you would want to maintain? Would you want additional flexibility for restaurants? Or would you be, in favor of eliminating it? I know that wouldn't be popular in this room, but there are certainly other rooms where I think that would be popular position.
I'll explain, I'll stand by what I said. I don't want to talk to everybody, learn from you.
I mean, we do have some, Boulder's kind of the capital of Colorado right now. The governor lives here and, we have the president of the Senate is here, we have the speaker of the House here. And so there's a lot, Boulder does punch above its weight, even though we're only 100,000 in the state of 6 million. We do have some influence, legislative stuff. And every December, we put together, the city Boulder City Council puts together what's called a legislative agenda. And this is our lobbying paper. This is the things that we're going to be in favor or against when they come out in Denver. And so as we, if you think there's going to be some legislation or some other political activity around this, that CRA would want Boulder to partner with you on, please do sit down with us. Our lobbyist is a guy by the name of Carl Castillo, and Carl does meet with industries, various industries, and understand what it is that they need. Also, your friend here in Boulder is the Boulder Chamber. The Boulder Chamber is very supportive of all industry, but particularly the restaurant industry, and they've been very supportive of that. So as you see things popping up down in Denver, please do let us know so we can be an ally here.
Absolutely, because we do partner well with the chamber on a lot of business issues, and it's very good to have you all on the table as well.
And Jonathan Singer was a contemporary of mine for 2 years. He's a great guy. So indeed. Mojo, I believe I saw your hand go up earlier.
You're back.
Yeah, absolutely.
First of all, this was very reassuring for the first time in a very long time. I hear that our representatives are actually understanding what at stake. So acknowledging the problems happened out already. So I thank you for that, but the reality is that we all know what the main struggles in there. So in order not to repeat other things, I'll give you somewhat of a clue. The reality is that we still have vacancies in this town. Downtown is not vibrant as it used to be. I've been living in this town for 17 years. I moved here from a different country, love this place, don't moving anytime soon. How do you see and what can you afford? What can you offer small businesses, local businesses you know, to revive downtown Boulder, the Hill. How can we extend, the reality is that, you know, the 29th Street Mall is not as crowded as we thought it would be. Is rough, but our industry is across this town, right? We are keep on honing on downtown Boulder, but there is a struggle throughout. So I guess, how do you see our city evolve while supporting restaurants and small business?
Yeah, because just in the last few years, what the Met closed, Shop House had reopened, now it's closed again. Well, that pub out like in the Merrill, the Whisker Blues, that's gone. You know, these places are still vacant. So I'd ask, I mean, what do you need? Do you need tax breaks? Can we give you tax breaks? Can you?
I'll take it.
It's a no-brainer. Take the tax breaks. Open the businesses, get the people in.
Yeah, this is a big issue, especially I'm gonna focus on downtown because that's really where my passion is, having served many years in the downtown board. And I spent a lot of time with John Banis and Dave Query and Bradford and Kimball and all the guys up and down the street about what are their issues, and Michael over at the gym, and really hearing what some of the challenges are. You know, a lot of these problems are fixable with money. Where does that money come from? Like the government, right? The good news is we got a buckload of it thanks to the voters a year ago. So we had a tax called the Community Culture Safety Tax, which I helped create in 2014. It was a 3-year tax, got renewed in 2017, got renewed in 2021, and this is where the money part of it comes in. Because we set aside, and I worked on the campaign in favor of passing this, we set aside, it was about $180 million over 15 years, 20 years, but 30 million was set aside for two things, 12 million and 18 million for downtown, and then for the civic area, the space just needed the world. We have a lot of our problems. So $30 million is in two spaces here. We're coming up on the 50th anniversary of Pearl Street, yay, of the mall. And we want to celebrate that, right? We want to refresh Pearl Street. We want to refresh downtown. We want to make sure we have adequate security and that we return. I moved here 22 years ago, and Pearl Street was very vibrant for a long time. I agree with you that I think the last 2 or 3 years, there's been a decline. Some of it's been caused by crime, some of it's been caused by COVID, some of it's been caused by turnover. Restaurant industry, I don't have to tell you guys, it's really tough, and we're always going to have some degree of churn. But we can help those industries that are struggling to draw on new businesses to fill up the vacancies. I mentioned before about this maybe commercial subsidy that we've been talking a little bit about in partnership with CU. So I think there's a lot of things in the works. I'd love to sit down with you, Mojo, and Jake to kind of learn a little bit more about some of the issues that you have. I'm sure you have a long list, so we'll have to do it over cocktails. Yeah. I love your cocktails. We're trying to be problem solvers here, and we've got a lot of challenges from a lot of different directions, and our job is to serve you.
I want to agree with Bob on one thing, which is that I love your cocktails too. What time is it? It's almost fun. Anyways, you know, so those are good points, and I think I'm going to reiterate some things we've been talking about. It's permitting reform is a real important piece about this, is making it easier to do business in Boulder from a regulatory standpoint. And part of that is like when you apply for a building permit or a variation on the rules, making that a relatively easy process. And part of it is just being more open to different uses in different parts of town. Like I mentioned about allowing restaurants finally in East Boulder in those industrial areas, right? So the city can get out of the way to make things more flexible and easier to do. And then I think just by increasing the desirability and the livability of the town, it helps everybody, all the businesses, right? So some of the problems that we were talking about earlier in the forum, we need to make progress on those problems. And as we do, this will be an easier town to open and run a business in. And so we make progress on that. Big investments coming in the downtown and in adjacent areas, as Bob mentioned. And then the fifth key piece is that we need to hold on to Coach Prime, right? Like the crowds and the attention that we're getting right now are just extraordinary, right? The Visit Boulder is estimating every home game being worth $17 million in local economic activity, and See Boulder estimating the advertising value of that's happened so far at 90 million, right? So that's really exciting. It's great to see excitement in town. You know, we've had so many problems in the last few years: shootings, fires, floods. And I got to go on national media not long ago to talk about how excited everybody is about the Coach Prime phenomenon. So it's nice to have some wind in our sails, Michelin recognition, right? We have problems, but fundamentally, this is one of the very best places in the world to live and to run a business. And I'm grateful that we're all here. I'm glad that you're all here with us doing it together. Thanks.
Good boss.
Well, I think we will end up now. I'll give each candidate, and I believe, Mayor Brockett, it's your turn to go first. Give your closing pitch, website plugs are fair game, but closing pitch, why you are the person to pick when you get your ballot in November. And when do ballots hit here?
On October 17 or 18.
Okay. And this will be an RCV election as well? Okay, so you will get to pick multiple candidates, but you have to rank them in order of your preference.
Well, actually, that was kind of my concluding statement, but I didn't think I realized I got another bite at the apple. But it was just so good to be here with you all today. My name, as you heard, is Aaron Brockett, running for the mayor of Boulder. It is ranked choice voting for the very first time in our city's history. So you get to put your top choice, your second choice, your third choice. So choose wisely. I recommend that people do the ranking, so you can have an effect if your first place person doesn't make it all the way. So excited about that. But anyway, it's just been the honor of my life to be on city council for the last 8 years and your mayor for the last 2 years. I've worked super, super hard in this role. I'm out in the community every single day, supporting our local nonprofits and schools and other organizations. I go to every event that I can to support the community. And I promise to continue doing that work for you and the entire community of Boulder, residents, workers, visitors, et cetera, each and every day if you'll vote for me this fall. So thanks so much.
I didn't submit my paperwork. I didn't decide to run for mayor just a few weeks ago. It's just a week before the deadline, the closing deadline. And I texted my girlfriend, I said, I'm thinking of running for mayor. What do you think? She said, absolutely not. Anyway, here we are. And I'm still asking myself, what was I thinking? Here's the thing, I'm at that position in my life, I've prospered. People have been very kind to me. When you get to a certain age, you start thinking about giving back. So that's why I'm.
Well, you heard a lot of agreement from us up here today, and so you say, well, am I going to pick first choice, second choice? These guys are all saying pretty much the same thing. I think the distinguishing factor, and this is true both for the mayor election, the separate city council election, and that is, who do you want to be your leader? Where's the leadership factor here? We may agree or disagree on some of the substantive issues. What's the person that I think can lead this community, address some of the challenges that we talked about this afternoon? I do support our local businesses. I do support our nonprofits. I've served on the boards of Dairy, Chautauqua. I created the Museum of Boulder. On the Parks Board downtown, I mentioned. And so not only do I support our nonprofits and our small businesses, I've been part of that for the 22 years that I've lived here in Boulder. And so I hope that as you consider the candidates for city council and also the candidates for mayor, you look at not only where we are on the issues, but also what we have done in the past to lead our community forward, because we don't know all the issues that will come up in the next 2 or 3 or 4 years. And so you want to make sure that you have people at the helm who are good communicators, who will also listen to you, and who have demonstrated leadership in our community. Speaking of elections, if you have nothing to do on the night of November 7th, that's election day, but we're all going to vote by mail, but the election results come out at 7 o'clock on November 7th. My victory party, right here in this room. Thanks to Dave and Dana for hosting my victory party here, and it's open to everybody. Cabs on me. And so if you have nothing else to do on the night of the 7th, stop by around 6:30 or 7 o'clock. We'll have the election results up on the screen, and we'll celebrate what I hope is a victory. So come on out. Thanks.
I'll be there, buddy.
Thank you. Multiple victory.
Well, thank you, all three of you, for joining us. I know how grueling the schedule is. We really appreciate you carving out time specifically for our industry. We've recorded this. We'll, once we get it all clipped, we'll email it over to your campaigns. You can bury it deep, and never speak of it again, or send it out freely, however you choose to do. And I do want to give a thank you to, our partner in this event as well, EatDenver, one more time, and, mix, mingle, and, hopefully you'll talk to some new constituents. On the way out. Thanks again. At least we don't have any business or anything.